And you know what? Let's be clear. Like, Eddie might have a future in like sad Eddie. You know, we had happy Eddie, now we might have sad Eddie. Sad Eddie would sell. That would sell.
Hello, Bravo bosses. This is the Bravo Investigator podcast. I am your host, Dana, and today on our Tuesday reality roundup, we are talking about Love is Blind, The Real Housewives of Potomac, The Chrisleys, and The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So happy Tuesday, everyone. I hope you had a great weekend and a great Monday. My apologies for not getting you guys an episode on Monday. I actually had a very special interview that I was going to drop for you guys. And then the interviewee ended up rescheduling, so I wasn't able to do it. And yes, there are still flies in here for those of you who are watching on YouTube. I don't know why I always have flies in my apartment. I just do. I'm working on it, okay? So yeah, I was supposed to have this really amazing interview, and it didn't end up happening. Guys, it was Olivia Bateman, okay? Brittany Bateman's daughter. And at first I was like, should I do this? Is it weird because she's a kid? She's 20 years old. I don't know. I mean, Katie Janela's daughter, Kaylee, did the All About the Real Housewives podcast when she was 20 years old. So, you know, I really wanted to be able to not get tea from her or do anything salacious, but really just get a sense from her what her life has been like in Utah, what it was like growing up Mormon, and what it was like growing up in her family, and whatever she wants to tell me about her future and her plans that she has now. But, you know, she had kind of a party weekend and her voice was all hoarse. And so she ended up having to cancel. But I am hoping that she reschedules because I was really, really excited to do it. And because I had nothing else to put out for you guys, that's why you guys had no episode on Monday. So we are here today to do a reality roundup. I also wanted to let you know that I didn't give you guys a Real Housewives of OC recap on the weekend. Honestly, because there wasn't much that happened in the episode, quite frankly. So next week is the finale. So I'll just double up the episodes on Saturday. So this coming Saturday, I'll do last week's episode and the finale together. And then also remember last week, I just want to remind you guys about all the episodes you could have caught last week. Last week, we did do a Monday reality roundup. And then on Thursday, I gave you guys a recap of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And then on Friday, I did a recap of the Love is Blind finale with Abby Bonadies, which was really fun as well. So you can go back and catch all of those. And here I am on Tuesday on YouTube for you all to watch me. And we are going to be starting with Love is Blind. Now, obviously, we know that this was a pretty terrible season. But that doesn't mean I'm like no longer interested in it. Like the reunion looks really, really good. It really does. Like I think that Casey and Joe might have slept together. I mean, we already know all the tea that they had gone on a couple dates, and now it's sort of assumed that maybe they slept together. I'm honestly not quite sure. Patrick calls out Casey about the ring. It looks like it's going to be a really good reunion. And listen, is Love blind? Obviously not, but that doesn't mean I don't want to watch this show. This show is still extremely entertaining. So over the past few weeks, I've been giving you guys the random bits of Love is Blind tea that we do know. So things about like Joe dating his new girlfriend and being with her for a year, the stuff that Madison has said about him online as well. I think we also talked about Kate and, you know, about Megan and her possible baby news. But the one piece of tea that I did not give you guys, which might be a little bit dated, but we just never talked about the Annie of it all. So I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of tea that came out about her. So this actually came from her ex-boyfriend, which was kind of nasty. And I'm talking about Annie as in like Nick and Annie, like the hairdresser Annie with the crazy hair who was telling Nick that she loves him, she loves him, she loves him. And they didn't end up getting married because, you know, she kept trying to pick fights with him. So she has this ex who is basically like running around social media to like TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, wherever anyone would listen to him. I also heard that apparently he was trying to reach out to podcasts. I mean, this is so reminiscent of that guy last year, the guy who said that he was dating the girl who was on the show before they left, but they weren't actually dating. And then he was like trying to get everyone on social media to hear him out because he was such a thirsty loser. So that sounds like what this is. But regardless, so basically he says online that right before he broke up with her, she got arrested because she took his ID out of his wallet and took it to AT&T to get access to his phone account to see if it was texting or calling other women. The representative from AT&T called the cops on her. okay, that sounds like a very insane thing to happen. Like, why would taking his ID and then taking the phone to the store give you access to what's in his phone? They know it's not him, right? Like, just because you have the ID and the phone doesn't mean that you have his consent or authority to get information from it. It's like a privacy situation. So of course they called the cops because they're like, how do you have this man's ID and phone? He did not send you to the store to be able to get the information from it. That is so insane. Now, this actually all started off with apparently she had a DUI and she had an ankle monitor. And this happened, I think, in 2020. And this was around the time that they started to date. And apparently she didn't want anyone to see her with the ankle monitor at the salon. So she was always wearing pants. I mean, story time with Ricky, who she does the Lord's work when it comes to the Love is Blind journalism. She verified all of this information. She went and found, the police records and made sure that this was all true. It just sort of makes you question, like, the contestants that they put on the show. I mean, there's obviously the rigorous testing that they do, like STD testing, for example. I'm sure they do other kinds of testing. But a background check would make sense, right? It would make sense that they would do some kind of background check with regards to, any sort of criminal activity before allowing you to come on the show. That being said, people make mistakes, and do we disallow them from being on reality TV because they had a DUI? I mean, we've let people on reality TV who have done worse. I'm really surprised that didn't come out sooner. There's actually been quite a bit of tea that has come out more so at the end of the season than at the beginning, right? We typically have people reaching out from everywhere who know this cast and have tea to spill. And we just didn't really hear anything at the beginning. So we thought this was sort of a boring cast, but I guess not. It makes us sort of question Annie when it comes to this season of Love is Blind, because she was definitely inebriated during many of the scenes, and definitely during many of the scenes where she was fighting with Nick. Now, I really don't think that this is something that the show can control, because you're in your own setting when you're doing that. You're in the show's apartment, right? But you're in your own home in a sense. It's the apartment that you're sharing with your fiance. And they can't really stop you from drinking in your own home. So if this is her regular, this is her regular. But it's concerning considering she had a DUI a few years back. And the fact that she does seem very inebriated on the show during times when maybe she shouldn't have been, because it seems like a lot of their fights happened because she was drunk. So I don't know if this is going to come up at the reunion. I sort of doubt it. And I'm not even sure if Nick is aware of it, quite frankly. It's weird to say that he dodged a bullet when she also dodged a bullet. I mean, they're both awful, right? But it's still sort of concerning that she was allowed to be on this show having this sort of criminal history. So still very excited to see the reunion, which will come out this Wednesday at 9 p.m. So I will be seated and I will definitely be recapping that for you guys. Okay, now let's move on to the Real Housewives of Potomac. So as we all know, Wendy Osefo and her husband, Eddie Osefo, were arrested on fraud charges, but now they're claiming it was an illegal arrest. So I have this article here from Us Weekly that says, Wendy Osefo is claiming she is the victim of an illegal arrest as she fights her fraud charges in court, Us Weekly can exclusively report. On October 17th, Osefo's lawyer filed court documents as part of her criminal case in Maryland. The reality star demanded all charges be dismissed due to alleged defects in the charging document. In addition, Osefo 41 demanded all evidence be suppressed because of an unlawful search or seizure. The Bravo star also asked for all wire and verbal communications to be suppressed because of an unlawful interception. In the filing, Osefo's lawyer claimed his client was illegally arrested. The reality star's counsel said all admissions, statements, and confessions should not be allowed as evidence because they were unlawfully obtained. Osefo and her husband, Eddie Osefo, were arrested in Westminster, Maryland on October 9th on fraud charges. Both were released from jail after posting $50,000 bond. The arrest came after a grand jury indicted the couple on charges of insurance fraud, conspiracy fraud, and making a false statement to a police officer. Wendy also asked that the trial of co-defendants be severed from the trials of this defendant. Eddie was hit with the charges over the same allegations. In a separate filing, Wendy's lawyer demanded that prosecutors turn over any alleged evidence that they possess. She demanded a list of all the witnesses the prosecutors plan to carry and any polygraph results of witnesses questioned by law enforcement. Wow, okay. Wendy also wanted to know if the prosecutors had any confidential informants who worked on the investigation and asked for all copies of official police reports. Okay, so a lot to unpack here. One thing is that basically Eddie and Wendy are going to have separate trials. That's one thing that's stated here. That is odd. I mean, I've seen that in cases, in like murder cases involving, let's say, like two boys who were accused of murdering the same person. Like their parents want them to have separate trials so that they're treated separately because their parents probably feel that they had different culpability in it. This seems a little confusing as to why they would want to be tried separately. Maybe it's for similar reasons. Maybe they're aware, in their marriage that one of them is more culpable of this than the other, and they're trying to find a way to maybe get leniency for one of them so that their children still have a parent while the other one might be incarcerated, because maybe if they were tried together, they'd be more likely to get the same outcome, which could be jail time. And then that would mean that the children don't have parents. So that's something that could be the reason. This whole thing about like illegal arrests, I mean, we don't really know in what sense. I mean, obviously Eddie and Wendy are very smart. Eddie is a lawyer himself, so he would know if there was circumstances that took place during the arrest that were illegal or were done improperly, which is a thing, right? Like if you're not read your Miranda rights, for example, then your arrest basically could go away. The whole process and procedure of being part of the criminal justice system has to be done appropriately. And if not done appropriately, even guilty people can end up having their charges thrown out just because of improper criminal procedures. So that's interesting to hear that come out. I mean, I guess we're going to have to see in what ways they feel that things were done illegally in terms of the arrest. Also wanting to know if prosecutors had confidential informants work on the investigation and asking for polygraph results of witnesses. Like, why? What witnesses, right? The only people that they would be talking to are the other insurance companies who determined whether they were reimbursing the Osefos for their claims. I don't really know why they would need to interview anyone and get polygraph results, because it's all based on documentation, right? Like any documentation that the Osefos submitted to these insurance companies, that becomes the investigation. Those are the documents that, prosecutors are going to look at to determine whether they submitted false documents. I mean, this whole thing is a criminal case of documentary evidence. It's not a case of he said, she said. It's a case of documents that can be verified, which is why this case is so baffling to begin with, because why would you do something that could so easily be traced back to you? Receipts, proof, timeline, screenshots, fucking everything, right? So it just seems very weird that in a case involving complete documentary evidence that Wendy believes that there is polygraph tests taken by witnesses and that there is confidential informants. It almost seems like she's trying to create the argument that maybe this was all done on purpose as like a conspiracy against them, which again can't really be done if there is like documentary evidence of the crime. I'm so confused. So Gizelle and Robyn have now reacted to the arrest on their podcast, Reasonably Shady. So I'm just going to play you guys a few clips of that so we can get a sense of what they're saying.
Highly shocked, surprised, and disappointed
Totally.
by these charges.
I'm so disappointed.
If everything that is in these documents is true, so of course you're guilty and innocent until proven guilty. But if everything in these charging documents is true, I'm highly disappointed. And then I just have so many questions, like why? Why do we feel the need to do this?
Why?
Yeah.
That is my biggest question. Like I immediately thought, first of all, huge disappointment, sad, right? Because this is so sad for their children,
Yeah.
guilty or innocent. Their parents were removed from their house and brought down to a police station and charged. They have mugshots. That is, I'm sure, super scary for their children.
I mean, first I want to say I am highly
so sad. But like, why? Well, surely not. In my mind, I'm like, this can't be for materialistic things. Like, you don't.
I mean, what else is it for though? Because it was highly intentional, highly planned, not well thought out, but thought out.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me wonder, like, like I saw a clip where she was kind of like talking about how well Happy Eddie is doing. So it makes me think like, okay, well, was that a exaggeration? Like, was that not the truth? I don't know. But it's also like, why? And then my more why questions, like, why did they think that they could get away with this? Why did they think, because I'll be honest, I watch a lot of crime shows, ID channel.
Me too.
I watch ID channel, American.
So sad.
American Greed. I'm all on the, assassins, anything. I could commit a crime. Like I would know what to do, to commit a crime and try to cover it up and all of that type of stuff. And I know I'm still getting caught. Like I know that there's no way I could put together the perfect crime scene based on my experience watching these shows. And I know I'm still going to get caught. Like, so I don't understand how they thought that they were going to get away with that. American Greed.
And you know what? Let's be clear. Like, Eddie might have a future in like sad Eddie. We had Happy Eddie. Now we might have sad Eddie. Sad Eddie would sell. That would sell.
So, I mean, they're not wrong, right? I mean, that's basically what we're all saying. It's sad, but we also don't understand how we got here or why this is happening. And yeah, I guess maybe sad Eddie will sell because I don't know what's going to happen to Happy Eddie. Okay, now let's move on to our next story, which is the Chrisleys. Now, this isn't normally a topic that I delve into, but the Chrisleys are part of the reality TV sphere. So as you guys probably know, the Chrisleys had a TV show. It was Todd, Julie, and their kids. It was on for quite a number of years until Todd and Julie went to prison recently for fraud, amongst a number of other charges. Now, one of their daughters, Savannah Chrisley, she was on Special Forces. She was even on the Vile Files talking about it. And she was a huge proponent of trying to get her parents out of prison while they were there. Now, their daughter, Lindsie Chrisley, has been estranged from the family for a number of years. And so she actually has a podcast with Kaylin Lowry from Teen Mom 2. And so between the two of them, they ended up releasing 3 podcast episodes over 3 different podcasts. So it's the Southern Tea podcast, which is Lindsay's podcast. And then I believe Coffee Convos, which is the one that Lindsie and Kaylin do together. And then on their Patreon was the 3rd episode. I didn't listen to that one, obviously. I'm not going to pay for it. But basically, they wanted to release these 3 episodes so that Lindsie could tell her true story about her estrangement from her family for the very first time. So she explains, and I will do my best to explain her take on it based on having listened to these episodes, that it all started with an estrangement between her and her parents all the way back to 2009 to 2012. So this is a period of time where she was in college and her dad was creating a lot of harsh rules with regards to her living away for college. He was paying for her apartment, but in order for her to live in the apartment, she had to be home at certain times. She couldn't have people over. And then something happened where apparently her dad got wind of the fact that she allegedly told people that he was bankrupt, which she said that she did not say. He ended up sending her a cease and desist for that. And then he sent her an email saying that she was of the lowest character. So again, you can see how minor things already tip off this guy pretty far to say some pretty crazy things about his daughter. But you know what? It only gets worse. So when they were approached about the reality show, basically Todd told her not to tell production that she was already pregnant and married because they wanted to create, that family dynamic on the show, have people get to know her in the first season. And then in the second season, they'll have her, fake get married, even though she's already married and, oh, here's her baby. She didn't really want to do that. She wasn't allowed to wear her wedding ring while filming. Now, this ended up becoming a huge issue for her husband, which is understandable. The fact that she has to pretend that she couldn't be married, the fact that she had to pretend that this wasn't part of her story didn't really make sense to him or to her, quite frankly, because, they didn't even know if the show was going to be picked up. So she decided to walk away from it. While she was pregnant, she moved in with Nanny, which is somebody that's on the show. But then she felt like she had to go back to the show because she ended up $40,000 in debt from trying to build their home and their life. Also, apparently the show wouldn't compensate her child, which is interesting, but made her sign a release for him to film. So I think that's pretty typical that they wouldn't pay a kid to be on the show, but then they're also requiring the kid to be on the show and making her sign a release for that. So I do see what she's saying there and how that isn't really fair. Her parents also relocated the show to Tennessee, so she ended up having to fly in to film, which was another strain on her marriage. But, her father was making her do this to be a part of the show. And then her dad and Will was her husband. They didn't have a good relationship because Will didn't want anything to do with reality TV. He just wanted a very simple life, just wanted to have a family, have kids, and that be that. But because she was always with her family, because they were always filming the show, it was sort of difficult for her that he wasn't getting along with her family because she's always with the family and because that's her job, right? So they ultimately ended up deciding to separate because of all of these issues. Now, their state didn't recognize legal separation, but they did have a legal agreement to separate. They did have an actual document. And then she started seeing Robbie Hayes around September 2016. Robbie Hayes is a thirst monster when it comes to reality TV. This guy has been on so many reality TV dating shows. He was on The Bachelor, as you guys may recall. He was on Andy Dorfman's season. Then he was on Bachelor in Paradise, and he got together with Amanda Stanton there. Then he was on, Siesta Key, and he was dating Juliet Porter, who we know also from Perfect Match. Then he also sort of dated Sheena Shea and was in a couple episodes of either season 7 or 8 of Vanderpump Rules. So this guy gets around the reality TV space, okay? So she starts seeing him. One weekend, he comes into town because he doesn't live in town. They have plans to go drinking, hang out with some friends. They're staying over at a friend's house. They're hanging out. And the friend has like a dog camera in her apartment, like most people do. I have one because her dog was having seizures, so she wanted to be able to check in on the dog when she was going to work. Robbie and Lindsie are hanging out at the friend's house. The friend isn't there, and they do not know that the puppy cam is there. So they did end up having sex at the friend's place, but they did not know that the camera was there. They did not know that it was being recorded, and they did not know that anyone was watching. So therefore, she says she did not consent to the recording of this essentially sex tape. So then in late January in Atlanta, the friend who lived in this apartment started, showing up everywhere that Lindsie was at. Let's call her Sarah for argument's sake. Lindsie ended up beeping out her name for the entirety of the podcast, but just for argument's sake, let's call her Sarah. So this Sarah just starts showing up everywhere that Lindsie is, and it's super bizarre. She would follow her from place to place and say that she wanted to talk to Lindsie privately. She wouldn't stop. She wanted to end the friendship at some point because this girl was asking her to post stuff for her on social media, and she just thought it was kind of weird. And so she kind of separated herself from this girl a little bit, but that's when she started kind of showing up everywhere that she was, saying that she wanted to get the friendship back on track. So basically this girl ended up becoming upset that Lindsie did not want to continue to be friends with her. And then she started just blowing up Lindsay's phone, going crazy. Lindsie actually had a bunch of friends over when this happened, when this girl was blowing up her phone, and put her on speaker in front of her friends. And the girl said that if Lindsie didn't agree to be her friend again and meet up with her, that she had this sex tape of her. Now, at this point, Lindsie had no idea that there is this sex tape, didn't know about the puppy cam, didn't know about any of this stuff. And at this point, she's reconciled with her husband. Okay. So her and her husband had separated. She dated Robbie Hayes while, they were separated, and now they're back together. So obviously this is going to cause a lot more issues between her and her husband. So she decided to file a police report against Sarah because Sarah is now threatening her with, releasing this sex tape. Her dad was aware at the time that she had to, file this police report. And that's how he found out about the tape. He wasn't aware of it before. Neither was, Lindsie. They both found out about it because she had to file a police report. Now, Lindsie didn't have a direct conversation with her brother Chase, for example, about it, but Todd directed her, for example, to file that police report. Then her brother Kyle was subpoenaed and interviewed, but Lindsie wasn't, and she doesn't know why when it comes to that whole situation. So that was very weird that her brother was, kind of brought in by police and questioned about something that he wasn't even there for when she wasn't. And then there was another point in time that she also talks about cops showing up at the house while they were filming, where they live, right? Because they're filming in the house. Their father didn't explain anything about it. Lindsie says, I guess that's their prerogative to, not tell me what's going on. But at the same time, we're all part of the same family. We're all part of the same job. So if you're doing something illegal, something where the cops are showing up, maybe it might be prudent to, let us know. And then what else happened? Sorry, there's just like so much that came out of this. It was so crazy. One time she saw Julie and Nanny. So Julie is Todd's wife and Nanny is part of the family at the Bank of America. She didn't expect to see them there. And Nanny was being added as a signer on the bank account, which is very strange, right? Because, they have their family bank account. So she's going over there to the bank and she sees that basically someone else is being added as a signer to the bank account. And sometimes people will, put bank accounts in different names so that it cannot be traced back to them, which is sort of what it looks like was happening here. She said that Kyle, her brother, was also completely estranged from the family at this point in time. But then he became a UPS driver, and then he became Lindsay's UPS driver, like in her area. So she started talking to him here and there, like surface level, like you would with a UPS driver. That's also your brother, I guess. And then that's when Kyle tells her that his ex-wife tipped off Channel 2, who ended up telling the story about the sex tape. So it really seems like everyone involved, like in Lindsay's life, even peripherally, really are trying to, take the family down. Lindsie decided to leave the show and not bring her son back. She also talks about a physical altercation that she had with Julie, but she doesn't say what it was. And she says that outside of that, Julie was, never did anything bad to her and really did raise her well. She didn't report it to the media, but she did have to report it to like the company or something like that because it happened on the location of their workplace. So that's sort of kind of interesting. I don't believe I've heard about this before, but I believe that this is public knowledge, that people know that there was sort of like this physical altercation, but she does know that Julie would absolutely never hurt her. So whatever this physical altercation was, I guess it was deemed like a one-time thing. Then there was the incident of her father tweeting about her. Okay. So her father was of the belief that Lindsie was part of letting the FBI know that he was involved in all of these different kinds of fraud and different kinds of crimes. She is saying that she was not involved in that whatsoever. But then he started releasing all of these insane tweets about her. Things like mother, like daughter, once a cheater, always a cheater, once a liar, always a liar, hashtag truth may cost you your child, hashtag it's coming out, hashtag gloves off. It's another one that says, especially since there's been more men in your bed than your husband has spent time there, hashtag two bachelors, hashtag in-laws, hashtag videos, hashtag photos, hashtag let's do this. It's completely insane, especially because she has not said a word and hasn't actually done anything to him. And you can actually go and, look up all these tweets. They still exist. He wrote something like, sometimes those that lie need to be exposed in order to stop the madness. Hashtag cheated twice. Hashtag thank God for puppy cams. Hashtag JAMRH, which would be Josh Allen Murray, Robbie Hayes. Hashtag sue me over the truth. Hashtag psycho. This is your dad. This is someone's dad. Okay. This is all because he gets in his head thinking that someone has tried to harm him and he goes on the defense, which makes sense if the person isn't your daughter. Also, why don't you confront her first and ask her if she's done these things before you decide to go to Twitter about it. It's so insane to me because she has to this day said that she has not gone to the FBI or any police regarding her father or Julie whatsoever. And there's no evidence proving that they have. It's absolutely insane. The ex-friend, so Sarah, we're calling her, she basically wanted to try to be on reality TV, and that's why Lindsay's of the belief that she was doing this to her. You know, she had tried to get on other reality shows apparently, and so she believes that that was sort of her intent in trying to be friends with Lindsie. And, you know, her dad was just using her pain against her, using the fact that this girl did this to her, using the pain in her marriage, using all of that by creating these disgusting tweets about her. The only people that knew about the puppy cam were this ex-friend, Sarah, and her dad. And so to do these tweets saying things like, laughing my ass off, don't leak what you're afraid to speak. The struggle to be relevant is heartbreaking. And then a month later, news about the puppy cam has leaked. So it's very obvious that this all came from the dad. It's absolutely disgusting and horrific. I'm glad that she's decided to come forward and tell her story. You know, I'm a person who's also estranged from their mother because my mother is a narcissist, and, you know, I'll stand by protecting my mental health all the live long day. I cannot even imagine if one of my parents was tweeting about me being a whore and a slut and people who I've slept with and all this stuff. I think that's absolutely insane and disgusting. Your parents are supposed to be the people that protect you, not the people that literally turn you into the people that can't protect you. Releasing her personal information to the media in such a horrific way, I don't know that I could ever come back from it. I really don't. And when you listen to these series of episodes that she did, there are so many points in time throughout this story, throughout her life, essentially, her story, her life, where she has reconciled with him, even when he's done horrible things like sending her cease and desist and calling her the lowest of low, because that's her dad, right? It's just what you do. And so there's definitely something to be said for family not necessarily being what's best for you. Maybe what's best for you is the other people in your life, your friends or whoever else that you feel that you can rely on. Just because somebody is blood doesn't mean that they have your best interest in heart. And I feel like Todd Chrisley is a perfect representation of parents that do not have your best interest at heart. Okay, let's move on to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and our weekly update on Denise and Aaron's marriage. So basically, we just got word that Aaron Phypers is accused of threatening his cousin who testified against his alleged abuse. So I'm just going to read this article that we have from Us Weekly, which says, Denise Richards' estranged husband, Aaron Phypers, is being accused of preventing his cousin, Kathleen McAllister, from speaking out about his alleged abuse, Us Weekly can exclusively report. Us obtained a copy of the criminal complaint and arrest warrant filed by prosecutors in Los Angeles on October 15th. The filing shows the 4 felony counts that Phypers, 53, was charged with that led to his arrest on Friday, October the 17th at court. As Us previously reported, the deputy district attorney officially charged Phypers with 2 felony counts related to injuring a spouse and 2 felony counts related to dissuading a witness by force or threat. In the new filing, the prosecutors explained that one of the felony charges related to dissuading a witness involved Phypers' cousin, who worked with him at his former wellness center in Malibu, California. The alleged incident occurred on January 17th, 2022, during which prosecutors believe Phypers knowingly and maliciously committed an act that was accompanied by force and an express and implied threat of force and violence against McAllister and Richards, 54. In her petition for a restraining order filed in July, Richards described an incident at Phypers Wellness Center on January 17th. So the January 17th incident is when allegedly Aaron hit Denise right in front of his cousin. So allegedly, this cousin has testified against him, but he's claiming that, you know, she's lying because he was the one who renewed her visa because she's from Canada. He's the one involved in renewing the visa. He didn't renew the visa, so she's pissed and now doing this. But this is also showing that he threatened her as well. So we knew that he was arrested in court last week, back when Kiki Monique was there, when she was watching the hearing to see if the restraining order was going to be made permanent or not. And then he ends up getting arrested for other things. Now, the spousal abuse has to do with the previous abuse that we knew about between him and Denise. But this thing about the cousin is new. So the fact that he's being, accused of threatening the cousin is, new information to us, and just shows again that this guy is such a piece of shit. He's trying to silence women that he either hit or that witnessed him hitting someone, right? I swear to God, this man is the worst man on earth. And you know what? Why don't you call a woman a liar one more time? Why don't you do that, bud? All right, let's move on to Garcelle and Sutton, because as we all know, Sutton left the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills last season, and she basically took off at the end of the reunion, didn't stay for the cast photo. She also unfollowed all of the cast and has basically ended her friendship with Sutton. So she was recently on Watch What Happens Live, and Andy asked her about that friendship, and she said that the friendship with Sutton is completely over. She explained that she was hurt that Sutton didn't have her back at the reunion and didn't take accountability for it after. She also said that she would consider coming back to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills if Erika Jayne left the show. She was also on a podcast called The Breakfast Club, and she opened up more about why she left the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and said, "It was really hurting my spirit. I just couldn't do it. Physically, mentally, spiritually, I couldn't do it anymore." She explained that she unfollowed the cast because she needed space and didn't want to see what they were doing. Garcelle also called Bose and Erika mean girls for how they reacted to her departure on Watch What Happens Live. I mean, at the end of the day, this is supposed to be a show about a group of friends, but it's not. It's a group of women who have alliances. And unfortunately, Garcelle's only friend / alliance was Sutton, right? So, it must be really difficult to be in a workspace or even, a group of women where you don't feel like you have a connection to anyone in it. And I feel like that was Garcelle's biggest issue throughout her time on the show, that she never really felt connected to anybody. But then she had Sutton and they had this very beautiful friendship. So to feel like you're losing that one and only friend or the one and only alliance that you have, that must have sort of rocked her world, right? Because it was sort of two things for her. I thought that we were actually friends and I thought that you would actually have my back. And instead I found out you were just a castmate. Or maybe that's how she's thinking of it, is sort of how I see it. I understand where she's coming from in terms of wanting to unfollow the cast because it can be like stressful to see things about yourself or about people that are doing things without you sometimes. But I guess I just never really understood why she really left the show, or I don't know. It always seems sort of trivial to me, if I'm being honest, right? And that's just my opinion, not, I'm not her. She can make decisions for herself. And for her to even say that it was too hard for her, like physically, mentally, spiritually, then I think it was taking a greater toll on her than anyone could possibly know. So it was probably greater than the Sutton of it all, greater than the Erika Jayne of it all. It was probably just not the space that she's meant to be in, or just not the show for her. I swear, if she had a show, a housewife show, where it was all Garcelle and her friends, I think we would see a whole different side to Garcelle that we've never seen. But we've basically seen her try to fit herself in a box that she would never normally be in. And so maybe that just felt inorganic for her and inorganic for us. So I would love to still see what Garcelle has on the horizon. She stars in lots of movies, directs lots of movies, and I'll still be watching her in that vein, right? But I would still love to have her back on the Housewives one day. Okay, guys, that is the end of the episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. For bonus content, head to patreon.com/the Bravo Investigator podcast. I'm doing 4 extra podcast episodes a month for $5. You also get the episodes ad-free, early, as well as bonus content. And if you want to follow me online, you can do that on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at the Bravo Investigator. Love you, BBs. I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Bravo Investigator podcast in partnership with Hurrdat Media. You can watch full-length videos on Hurrdat Entertainment's YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at the Bravo Investigator. If you enjoy the show, please leave me a 5-star review. Love you, BBs. See you next time.
A Hurrdat Media Production.